Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning. Here's Serge Boro to talk about diamonds, and this, as my announcement said, is a return, and this is remarkable. Seniors are not exactly renowned for their memories, but at least 3 or 4 long-term residents have mentioned to me they remembered Serge talking, and we figured it probably about 8 years ago. So Serge, this was very memorable, and it was demanded again. Diamonds, what a fascinating topic. And here you go, Serge.
2 years ago.
Andrew, oh yeah, it starts.
So, good morning.
Morning.
Can we lower the lights?
Yep. Yes, thanks to our staff, we got technology.
Okay. So we're going to be talking about diamonds today. And diamonds are a kind of something that a lot of people don't know too much about. And when you buy a diamond, you're at the mercy of the jeweler. And believe me, a lot of them don't know much more than you do. So let's get into it. So we all know that diamonds are going to be found way down deep in the earth, probably a mile or so down in the earth. And when you find earth like that produces diamonds, it takes 250 tons of that dirt to yield about a 1-carat diamond,
Wow.
rough diamond. And I have a 1.5-carat rough diamond here so that you can see what it looks like. So the diamonds are brought up to the top and they're put on a grease belt, and water is flowing on that grease belt. And at the end of the grease belt there's a big bucket. The diamonds will fall into the bucket and the dirt will be washed away. And that's how the diamonds are recovered. So now we have the diamonds, and what happens to all those diamonds? Well, what comes out of the earth are mainly octahedron diamonds. And that is this kind of a shape. It's like 2 pyramids, one on top of the other. And 70% of your diamonds that come out of the ground are this shape. And when it is this shape, you know exactly what you're going to do with the diamond. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So now, all of these diamonds have to go somewhere. And there is a company, which probably you must have heard about, some of you, called De Beers, which controls about 80% of the world's production of diamonds. The only country, big country, that doesn't belong to the De Beers group is Russia. And Russia is the country that produces the most rough diamonds in the world today. Any idea what the second country is?
South Africa?
Okay, now you say South Africa, that's a big country there. Botswana is the second biggest country producing diamonds. And the third one is kind of strange, you may not think of it, but it's Canada. And Canada has found a huge deposit of very fine quality rough diamonds. And when you send all these diamonds, De Beers has about 125 customers throughout the world. And 10 times a year, all their customers go to London. When I was working, it was in London. Now it's in Botswana for some reason. And all of these customers would go there, and what you would do is you would send them a wish list of the kind of rough that you wanted, different kinds of crystals, sizes, colors, and so forth. And then you would go over there, and I would sit in this was 10 times a year. I would go to London and sit in a beautiful oak paneled room, and they would bring in the box of the diamonds, the rough diamonds, and you had really no choice. There was no saying, well, I'll take this and I don't take that. You had to take the whole box or reject the whole box. And we're talking boxes that cost probably $5–10 million and up. You had no time to really go through these, but it didn't matter. You were going to accept the box, because if you didn't, they probably wouldn't ask you back again. So you would take those crystals and you would get them home, and most of them would be crystals that looked like this. And when you have a crystal like this, which is a geometric shape, you know exactly what you're going to do with this kind of a crystal. You're going to saw it into two pieces, and you're going to make two round diamonds. And you're going to saw it off center, so that you get a big piece and a small piece. And it seems to work out better than to getting two pieces of the same size. Now, years ago, they didn't have a diamond sawing machine. So what they did was they took a file and they charged it with diamond dust, and they simply filed away the top of the diamond crystal until you had that shape, and then they made a round stone. And in the about 1929 or so, a diamond sawing machine came into being, and that completely changed the diamond industry, because now you could get two diamonds out of the crystal rather than one. So your profits were much, much bigger. Okay? So now, how do you know where to saw? Now there's two planes in a diamond. You have a sawing plane and you have a cleaving plane. A cleaving plane is splitting the diamond into two pieces. And you only do that on an off-shaped piece of rough diamond. So, how do you know where those planes are? Well, when you have a geometric shape like this, you know exactly where you can saw. And you can saw a diamond parallel to a cubic face. And you can cleave a diamond parallel to your octahedron faces, and there's 8 of those. Every once in a while, you're going to find a diamond that isn't an octahedron shape and hasn't been brought up from the mine. It's right on top of the ground. And that happened in this particular case in 1934. A farmer by the name of Yonker was walking on his property, and he came across this little bauble here. And this is an exact replica of what he found on the ground. Now, he was in a diamond-bearing area, so he thought, wow, this may be a diamond. So he sent it away to be analyzed, and sure enough, it was a diamond. Weighed 726 carats. Very, very big diamond. So what do you do with this kind of a diamond? It was purchased by Mr. Harry Winston, who I think some of you may have heard of. And he gave it to quite a few different diamond cutters to see what you're going to do with this. You're not going to make one diamond out of this. So you have to try to make whatever you can. There's tons of different plans that you can make out of this. So it was shown to a man by the name of Mr. Lazar Kaplan, who was a cousin of mine and was a pretty well-known, renowned diamond cutter. And what he did was try to figure out what could be done out of this particular diamond. Now the diamond has to be cleaved and sawed, but where is the cleaving plane and where is the sawing plane on this? It doesn't have an octahedron shape. So how do you know where those planes are? It took him over a year. He analyzed this diamond, and there are ways to find these particular grains. It's too long a story to tell you, but after a year, he thought he had found the cleaving plane. Now, he's not going to do it through the middle of the diamond. That would kind of ruin the diamond if it's wrong. Because if you try to cleave a diamond and you're not on the plane, it's going to shatter into a million pieces. It's like a piece of wood. You have the grain, you take an axe, and you hit it on the grain, and the diamond splits into two. But if you try the other way, it's not going to work. Okay, so he thought he had found the cleaving plane. Now, he's not going to do it in the middle of the diamond, because if he's wrong, the diamond is going to shatter and it's gone. So he did it completely on the end of the diamond. He cleaved in the end. And by cleaving, I'm talking about putting the diamond in a stick like this. Now that diamond is a hell of a lot bigger than would be in this stick. So it was a huge stick. This is sealing wax and shellac. You heat this up, you put the diamond in there, and then you put it in cold water and it hardens, and the diamond is very solidly in there. You put another diamond, which has been sawed because you have sharp edges, in another stick, and then on a little not very good at that. Okay, so you can see there's a hammer there, and there's a steel blade that is put right into the diamond, and there's your box where you will put one stick on one side and one stick on the other, and then you will just grind and grind and grind until you get a groove deep enough that you think that you can put that blade in there, and then you will hit it with that hammer, and if you are correct, the diamond will split in two. If you're not correct, forget it. The diamond is gone. Now, thank goodness he was correct. And he cleaved the diamond all the way on the end, so that if he was wrong, he was hoping that he would be able to save the rest of the diamond. Okay, so now what does he do? He makes dozens of plans, and with plastic pieces, and he actually cleaves and saws this plastic into different planes. And he presents these different plans, and by plans I'm talking about round stones, square cuts, marquises, ovals. different shapes, different sizes, and by measuring these plastic pieces, he can practically tell what the finished weight of the particular diamond is going to be. He presented these plans to Mr. Harry Winston, who was the owner of this particular diamond. And Mr. Winston picked this particular plan, which yielded 12 diamonds. Most of them are emerald cuts, as you can see, but there's one marquise, and that was the one on the end. This particular diamond here was the biggest of them all. It weighed 125 carats, finished. And the Queen of Nepal was the first owner of that particular diamond. King Farouk was also one of the owners of that diamond. Okay? And that's what made Mr. Lazar Kaplan famous, more famous than he was. So now diamonds are classified by 4 C's. You've got cut, color, clarity, and carat weight. You've also got a 5th one, which is cost. But let's talk about the 4. So let's start with weight, carat weight. That's easy. You've got a scale, you put a diamond on the scale, and you know what the weight is. There are also gauges that you can use. There's a top gauge and a side gauge. And if the diamond is mounted, you can gauge the top and the depth and come pretty close to a weight. Okay? So that's easy. You move to color. Now, color is something that there is a company called the Gemological Institute of America, GIA. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it, but that company is responsible for grading diamonds for color, and their system, which they developed in the 30s, is used in the whole world. And wherever you go in the world, a diamond will be classified as a D, David, to Z, zebra color. D being a completely clear white stone, and Z being a pretty deep yellow stone. Now, how do you know what that system is? Every manufacturer, every dealer who sells diamonds should have a set of what is called master stones. And they are calibrated by the Gemological Institute of America from D to Z. And our company had 2 sets of these diamonds, and we had the whole 23 stones from D to Z. And we had them in half-carat sizes. And that's the way we would grade all diamonds that came into our office with those particular stones. There are quite a few retailers who have these sets and can show you exactly what your color is. And the way you would do it would be to take a plain white piece of paper and just fold it so that there was a groove in it. And you would put those specific diamonds, a jeweler wouldn't be able to afford a D to Z set. That would cost you a fortune. But if you had, let's say, an E, G, I, K, or F, H, J, L, at least 3 or 4 diamonds that you could show the consumer in the tray, and you would put your subject stone in the tray, and then put these master stones in the tray, and just go up and down until you came as close as you could possibly come to the master stone, and that's the way you would grade color. Now, it was a little bit subjective, but that's the way it was done. Now, between a D and an E color, there is practically no difference whatsoever. It's very, very hard to tell the difference. And yet, price-wise, it would be a matter in a carat stone, let's say, of maybe $10,000 a carat between that D and that E. So if a jeweler didn't have a certificate from Gemological Institute of America to show you that they had calibrated that diamond as a D, and the jeweler just told you it was a D, how the heck did you know? And he would charge you a D price, and that's not really pretty kosher. Now that's the way colored diamonds were done in quite a long time. But then, in the 1970s or so, right around there, a computer came out that would calibrate the color rather than have your diamonds do it. And today, that is the way color is done in a diamond. It is done strictly by computer. And it is a little more accurate. It will give you a number, and that number correlates to either a D, E, F, all the way down the line. Okay? So now you get to a pretty yellow diamond, which is not worth too much. But on the other hand, you get a diamond that goes deeper yellow and deeper yellow. And you might have heard of a diamond that is called a canary diamond. And that is a diamond that is really, really a very deep yellow. And the price of that comes back up. Now, diamonds come in all colors of the world. Anybody know what the most expensive or rare color is in a diamond?
Blue?
Blue is very rare, but the rarest color is red. And there are maybe 3 or 4 natural red diamonds. Diamonds can also be made different colors by a cyclotron machine. So you have to be careful if you're going into colored diamonds that it's a natural color rather than a fake color, which is okay if that's what you want, but you better make sure of what you're getting, okay? We had a case where we had a jeweler that took in a ring from a customer, and she had a blue diamond that weighed a carat, 30 points. And she wanted it reset. And he reset it for her. And this was a natural blue diamond. And in a blue diamond, it really doesn't matter whether you have a few imperfections or not. It's still worth a hell of a lot of money. So he repaired it, and he made a new mounting, and he called her in, and it was ready. And she came in, picked up the ring, but she didn't have the receipt. Now, she was a really good customer, so he gave her the ring without the receipt. Unfortunately, she dies a couple of months later. And the husband is going through her effects, and he knows that she has the ring over there. So he goes over and he said, I'd like the ring. I said, here's the receipt. And he says, she didn't have the receipt, and I gave her the ring. So he said, well, it was not in any of her effects. Anyway, the end of the story is that he sued the jeweler and won and got $130,000. Now a jeweler, it was a local jeweler, probably couldn't afford that kind of money. So that's what happened in that particular case. But diamonds do come in all different colors of the world. And red is the most important color, okay? So when you've got a mount, if you want to get the true color of a diamond, it must be out of the mounting. It can't be in the mounting, because you have to look at the stone from the back. And that's the way we used to do it. Today, it's on a computer, but you still need it loose. You can't put a ring on the computer, right? So if a jeweler just takes a diamond ring out and tells you it's an F color or a G color, you can't really tell unless you have a certificate from the Gemological Institute. So be careful on that, right? So now you get into clarity. Clarity is something that is a little bit ambiguous. There is no computer yet today that will be able to tell you if there is an inclusion in the diamond or not. Now, the more inclusions in the diamond, of course, the lower it's graded and the cheaper it is. Now, the Federal Trade Commission says that you can examine the diamond with a plain 10-power loop and be able to grade that diamond. Okay. So now, I can look at the diamond, and I can give it to you, and you can look at the diamond, and I'm telling you, it's not that easy to use one of these. It has to be exactly at the right depth, and you have to take your time, and I might find something in the diamond that you may not. So I may grade the diamond different than you. Compared to color, where there is a definite computer that will tell you, clarity is kind of ambiguous. So you can have different inclusions in different parts of the diamond. If an inclusion is in the middle of the diamond, it will reflect all around the diamond and look worse than if it only looked like one inclusion, right? So what the cutter might do in that case is tip the diamond a little bit and get that inclusion away from the middle, and therefore it won't reflect that much, and you can grade it a little higher, okay? Now, there are white inclusions and there are black inclusions. White inclusions are more desirable than black. So somebody came up with a bright idea. Well, if I could change that black inclusion to white, I could charge more money. And lo and behold, somebody came up with the idea, and they use a laser beam, and they drill a hole, usually from the back of the diamond, to that inclusion, so it's got a funnel to that inclusion. They then boil out the black from the inclusion, and it becomes white. And when that is mounted, believe me, you cannot see that little hole or that funnel, all right? So that's been going on in the industry. So you've got to be careful of that. So it all comes down to trusting your jeweler. And there are jewelers that are called American Gem Society jewelers. And those jewelers have had to have gemological training. They have to have a laboratory in their store, and they have to have a set of comparison diamonds to show you. and a computer to show you. So they have to spend a little more money, but they are much more able to show you exactly what is in a diamond. So if you're going to buy a diamond, be careful. And I would suggest going to an American Gem Society jeweler, and there are plenty of them in this area. Not plenty, but there are some in this area. Okay, so that's kind of more or less inclusions. Now, the most important of the 4 C's is cut. And cut is completely under the control of the cutter. He can make that diamond beautiful, or he can make it big. And 90% of the cutters, what do they want to do? They want to make it big. And why do they want to make it big? So that they can charge you more money. All right? But what happens if they want to make it bigger? It doesn't look as nice. So what happens if they don't want to cut it to correct proportions? The diamond starts to look okay. Now notice over on that end, this one is pretty thick. Notice how thick this area is. Notice how thin that area is. Notice the difference in the proportions between this one and this one. Notice that this one is black in the middle. What's happening here is that the diamond is too deep. Notice here you have this ugly gray ring. What's happening here is that the diamond is too shallow. This is a correct diamond. It looks, what's going to happen, there are definite proportions and angles that a diamond can be cut to, so that the angle when the light goes into the diamond, it will reflect and refract back out of the diamond. Now, every diamond cutter knows exactly what the angles and the proportions of a correctly cut diamond are. But I can tell you that 80% of them do not cut the diamond to what is called an ideal cut diamond. And an ideal cut diamond is a diamond that is cut to these exact proportions and angles. And notice that the area here, which is called the table, should be 53 to 57% of the diameter. The depth of the diamond should be approximately 60%, 43% below what is called the girdle, and 16% above. And then 1 or 2% for your girdle. Okay? Those are the ideal proportions. And those proportions were come to with another cousin of mine called Marcel Tolkovsky, who in 1919 came up with this particular plan of proportions. And if a diamond is cut to these ideal proportions, the light that enters it is going to refract and reflect to the other side and then back up. Any deviation from these, and the light will start to leak out. Depending on how much light leaks out is dependent on how much these angles and proportions are changed. Okay? Now, the most important facet on a diamond, and I think you can see that the bottom angle here should be 40 3/4 degrees. So if you cut the diamond to 40 3/4 degrees on either side, the bottom has to come together at 43% below the girth. But if this angle is 41 or 42 degrees, it's going to come down further than 43%, and the diamond is starting to look blackish. The deeper the diamond, the more blackish it's going to look, like I just showed you. But cutters want to make money. And 90% of your diamonds are not cut to these proportions. Now, you can tell whether a diamond is correctly cut or not, and I'm talking about you guys. If you have a round diamond, it's not that hard. Correct diamond should have a table area of 53 to 57% of the diameter. Now, how can you tell? Well, if you have a loupe or a magnifying glass, take a look at these lines that make up the diamond. And notice that here it's curving in a little bit. Notice here that it's straight. And notice here that it's curving out. When the lines curve in, it's probably correct between 53 and 57% of the diameter. But if the lines start to straighten out, this area becomes larger and light starts to leak out of the diamond. Now, if you have a large enough diamond and in the magnifying glass, you can tell. And when I used to do seminars all over the world, at the end of the seminar, people would come up to me and say, could you tell me whether this... And I would say, well, do you want me to tell you the truth or you want me to lie to you? And they would say, no, I want the truth. And I would try to show them that their lines, in 90% of the cases, were either straight or curving out, and therefore was no good. Okay? So, this is the cutting wheel. And a cutting wheel is a steel wheel, and it is scored with diamond powder, and then a cutter has what is called a dop, and the diamond goes on the end, and he just grinds away the material at a certain angle and a certain proportion. Now, does anybody know how many of these little facets are on a round diamond? Any idea? Okay. There are 58 of these little facets on a round diamond. There are 33 on the top, and there are 25 on the bottom. And all of those little facets have to be completely in sync with each other and at a certain angle, which I showed you. All right? Now, a cutter is grinding on the wheel, and he'll look at it every couple of minutes. Grinding, look, grinding, look. And he'll set this machine here at a certain angle. 34.5 for the crown, 40 3/4 to the bottom. And he'll continually look at that. And that's the way a diamond was cut years ago. Now, the material that he grinds off the diamond is dust. I mean, that's gone. He cannot put it back on the diamond if he makes a mistake. So take a 1 carat diamond as opposed to a 99-point diamond. And there is a hell of a difference between the two of them. So of course, cutters are going to try to keep that 1 carat diamond. And just a certain grinding of maybe 10 seconds makes a difference on that 1 point and can cost the jeweler a lot of money. So that is why 99% of your diamonds are not cut to correct proportion. They know what it's supposed to be, but they're not going to worry about it. They want to get the biggest diamond that they can get. So most cutters will get 50 to 60% out of a piece of rough. So 50 to 60% is gone. We will only get about 40%, making an ideal cut diamond with all of those different proportions, right? So there's a big difference there. And what I told you is to look for those curving lines, and that is probably one of your best ways to protect yourself. Now, some people may not care. They may want just the biggest diamond they can get for their money, and that's fine. But if you want the beauty of what a diamond is supposed to be, well, that's what you're going to go for, okay? So, a little aside, when you're grading diamonds for perfection, for imperfections, every once in a while, you come up with a weird-looking inclusion. And I have one here, and that's an inclusion in a diamond, and we call it the baseball batsman. It looks like an outfielder catching a fly ball. All right? You might see something different, but that is a natural inclusion in a diamond. And then another one that we found, is a dolphin. And weird as it may seem, it's even got an eye.
Yeah.
All right? So in my 50 years that I was doing grading, we always look for these kind of inclusions. And if we found something that was close, we would pass it among each other and say, what do you see here? Do you see this, what I see, and so forth, okay? So that was kind of fun when you were doing grading. Now, one story that I can tell you, one story that I can tell you, when we were buying diamonds on the market, Russia had the best diamonds, and they still do. They cut a lot of their diamonds to ideal proportions. Now, Russia is not a member of De Beers. They're completely on their own. But they produce the most diamonds in the world. Now, I'm talking back in the 70s. And I was going to Moscow to buy polished diamonds. Not rough diamonds, but polished diamonds. And we would sit in a room, and they would bring you thousands of these diamonds in parcels. And as opposed to De Beers, where you cannot select, they would allow you to select your diamonds. So I would go through thousands of diamonds just looking for the ideal proportion so that we could sell those. And I worked with a very nice young man. It's not pleasant to go there. They make everything very, very tough for you. In the morning, you would go down to the desk, and there would be a slip of paper with a license plate on it, and you would go outside and look for that license plate on the cars, because we had a car at our disposal for the day, and they would take you to a company called Almas, same as our housekeeper, and they were the Russian company handling diamonds. And you would sit there all day long. They would serve you smoked salmon at lunch and so forth. But you would be in a room all by yourself with this young man, and you would just select, I want this, I don't want this, I want this, I don't want this, and you would do that all day. Then at the end of a couple of days, when you had all the diamonds that you wanted, they would give you a price on what you wanted. And you had to go back and figure out whether that price was correct or not. Now, we knew that if you could move them $10 on their offer, it was a lot. So you were kind of, and they didn't care whether you bought or not, because there was somebody in the next room ready to buy if you weren't. So after 3 days came the negotiations, and you would go back and forth. You would offer them a price, and we're again talking in the millions of dollars. And you cannot call New York and have advice from New York, because we were told that all the phones are tapped, and you better be careful. Because when you landed in Moscow, they took you to a particular hotel. You could not pick your hotel. You just knew that you landed there, and there would be somebody to pick you up and bring you to the hotel. And the hotels are not the greatest, I can tell you, some of you who have been there. So anyway, I worked with this young man, and you give them a price, and then they of course tell you that's ridiculous, and they walk out of the room and they say you better rethink it. And of course a couple of hours later they come back in, and you've gone up maybe a couple of dollars, and they come down a couple of dollars, and in the end you know you're either going to be within that $10 or not. And if you saw yourself completely out of that $10, there was no way you were going to be able to buy at that particular time. So, you buy the goods or you don't buy the goods. And the second time I went there, I wanted to bring the young man something. He was very nice. We even went out to dinner one night and exchanged all kinds of information. So I wanted to bring him something, and I didn't know what to bring him. So my wife comes up with the brilliant idea, why don't you bring him a copy of Playboy and Penthouse? They don't have that over there. So this is from my wife. So I say, you know, that might be a good idea. He's a young man who probably would enjoy looking at the magazine. So I bought the magazines, and I put them in a plain manila envelope like this, and I put it in my attaché case, and I land in Moscow. And any of you ever been there? Okay. So it's very intimidating, because in my time they were all in uniform, and they look pretty rough. And I know they're going to look through my attaché case. So I open up my attaché case, and they look through it, and they ask me what's in the manila envelope, and I tell them a couple of magazines. And they say, let me see. So I say, oh, I'm in trouble. I saw myself in the gulag. So I take out the magazines, and he starts to shake his head. And he looks through the magazine, of course. And he calls over a couple of people to go through the magazine. And he says, I can't let you take this into the country. So I said, why not? And he said, well, it's pornography. He says, we don't allow pornography in Russia. So I said, well, I didn't bring it for the pictures, I brought it for the articles and the cartoons and so forth. So finally, they do allow me to bring in the magazines, but they put it on my declaration, my customs declaration. And they told me, when you leave the country, you better have that with you. So what could I do? I never gave it to the young men. And when I left, sure enough, they went through that magazine page by page to make sure nobody had taken any pages out. So that was the example in Russia. So the only thing I can tell you is that in buying a diamond, there are quite a few things to know. And your best protection is to go to a reputable jeweler. There is a reputable jeweler here called Fox, downtown, who is an American jeweler, American Gem Society jeweler. But I just heard that they may be closing up or have closed up, so I'm not sure. But there is an American Gem Society jeweler in Bellevue. And that's about it. Now, does anybody have any questions? Yes.
You spoke several times about a cousin or some sort of relative who was in the business. So in the diamond business, does it seem to be families that...
Yeah, a lot of it is family. I was born in Antwerp, Belgium. And I can tell you that more than 50% of the people in Antwerp are in the diamond industry. Antwerp is the capital of the diamond industry in the world, and it still is. It's very close to London, where De Beers was, and Antwerp, Belgium is still the capital, the diamond capital of the world.
Here, and then pass it to Mary, and then back here to Roger.
In all the grinding away, a lot of diamond dust is produced.
Right.
And in the early days, before they had a saw to cut off, you were grinding it down to a flat surface. Was it used? Was the diamond dust used early on, or just discarded?
No, the dust was used for more grinding. More.
But there's
They would charge a file. So you need a diamond dust.
You do.
Because only diamond will cut diamond. Right? Diamond is the hardest mineral in the world.
But is it used in industrial grinding
No.
of other materials or something like that?
No. Now, the one thing we didn't talk about are man-made diamonds. And as you know, there are now man-made diamonds. And this goes back to the early 50s, and General Electric was the first company that came out with a man-made diamond. And it was very, very small at that time. In the years hence, you can now have diamonds man-made that are practically any size. And believe me, you cannot tell the difference, especially if it's mounted. So your best protection too is to buy a loose diamond, never in the mounting. Because in the mounting, unless you have a certificate that tells you what it is, there is no way that you can tell the true color of a diamond. And the clarity of a diamond is very, very hard to tell in a mounting, because most of your inclusions, your real small inclusions, can only be seen from the bottom of the diamond, which you can't tell in a mountain. But now these man-made diamonds are cut, and you cannot tell the difference unless you go to a laboratory and have it looked at. All right? And they are now in pretty nice sizes. You can get carat, 2-carat diamonds and fake diamonds. So it's up to you again. Do you want to pay for a D-color diamond, or would you settle for an F diamond or a G diamond? Which, believe me, in a mounting, you're not going to be able to tell the difference to the naked eye. And it's the same thing with the man-made diamonds. You cannot tell the difference unless you go to a lab and have it done.
Gary and Roger, and then Al.
Yeah. Barry?
The cutter cuts for size and profits.
Right.
But when you buy the diamonds, you buy for proportions.
Well, that's up to you.
Well, but you said you do.
Oh, with us?
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Lazar Kaplan was the first to come up with, to cut all his diamonds with the ideal proportions, which my cousin Marcel Tarkovsky came up with. Now, everybody today can cut to those proportions or not. There are many, many more firms now that cut to ideal. Ideal was, we were the first. Mr. Lazar Kaplan was the first to incorporate the ideal proportions into all his diamonds. And now it's a very popular item. You may pay a little more, but you're getting the brilliance and not the dullness.
Can you pass it back to Roger?
Yes, I was just wondering what causes a diamond to be a different color?
I am not quite sure. There are inclusions in the diamond which will give it a different color. I'm not quite sure. Now, you could look that up. I'm sure I could have looked it up, but I didn't. Now, there used to be a cyclotron machine, which you could take a yellow diamond, for instance, and you could make it a deep yellow diamond, which would make it much more valuable. You could take a white diamond and you could make it blue or pink, or which would make it...
I would think that would be difficult to do because they're so hard.
No, it would impregnate it. There's a cyclotron machine which would impregnate the diamond. It's not a matter of cutting the diamond, you impregnate the diamond, and you can go into that diamond. Now, we're talking about colored diamonds, and I told you that red diamonds are the most expensive. When I was in the business, the country that produced the most rough diamonds in the world, believe it or not, was Australia. And Australia didn't produce very fine diamonds except for pink diamonds. And the pink diamonds only came, mostly 99%, from Australia. The rest of their production was brown diamonds. They weren't very pretty looking diamonds. But their mine, which was called Argyle, is now out of production. They ran out. But in those days, Australia was the country that produced the most diamonds in the world. Now, you can go to, in the United States, if you want to get on a plane and go to Murfreesboro, Arkansas. There is a diamond mine there, and for $16 a day, you can rent or you can bring your own equipment, and you can go out and dig for diamonds. And they have found some fairly decent diamonds, although most of them are on the brownish side, which are not very valuable.
At 1,000 feet below the earth,
Pardon?
is where you can
hell?
is it 1,000 feet below
Thank you.
the earth?
No, this is
On the
right on
surface?
top of the ground. You can dig, I mean, you have to dig down a little bit, but it's, no, it's not like a mine. It's, and it's, I forgot how many acres it is. And this has been open for a long, long time. And people still find diamonds there. And some of them find some fairly, one person, a couple of years ago, found a crystal that yielded nearly a 1-carat D flawless diamond, which is worth about 20,000, 30,000 bucks a carat
In Arkansas?
in Arkansas. Yeah.
For a while, we were hearing about blood diamonds,
Right.
which seem to be sort of an illegitimate source. What can you tell us about those?
Okay, blood diamonds in Africa, you had all of these natives that were taken advantage of in terms of working hours and salary and so forth. And a lot of people thought that you shouldn't buy diamonds that were mined by those. So there was a certificate that for years was sold with these diamonds. If you saw the picture, what was the name of that picture? There was a movie made about blood diamonds. I forgot what the name of it.
Blood diamonds.
Blood diamond?
Blood diamond.
Yeah, I forgot who was that. But, yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, you know, all of these diamonds come out of Africa and Australia and Russia and Brazil is known for their yellow diamonds. So it's something that I think has kind of gone out.
I have an old mine cut diamond from my grandmother. Can you tell me anything about that cut? It's old.
Yeah, it's not brilliant.
Oh.
I can tell you that. But diamonds can be recut. In other words, we can take that diamond and we can repolish it and bring it to all these different angles and proportions. Now, it depends whether it's going to be worth losing the weight. In other words, if you have a diamond that's over a carat and you're going to end up with a diamond under a carat, well, I don't know, it may not be worth it. But if you have a diamond that's going to remain a decent size, it definitely is worth it.
Thank you.
Okay.
As far as the man-made diamonds, you have cubic zirconia, which is one of the materials that you can make fake diamonds. And there are a couple of others. Can't think of the other one now. Can't
Do
think
they
of-
have inclusion?
Pardon?
Do they have inclusion?
No, usually they'll be clear. All of those man-made diamonds will be clear. Okay. Now, for anybody that's interested, this particular diamond here, the man's name, who owned that farm where this diamond was found, was called Yonker. Jonker. And if you want to see the actual first cleave of this particular diamond, just go and Google Yonker diamond, cleaving of the Yonker diamond, and it'll bring you to a website, and you can actually see Mr. Lazar Kaplan cleaving that particular diamond. Now, I used to cleave a lot of diamonds on exhibitions, and I used to cleave, you know, small diamonds. This diamond needed 2 people, one to hold the blade and the other one to hit it. And it's kind of innovating because as you come down, if you don't hit it correctly or if it's not exactly on that groove, it's going to shatter. No question about it.
And then there's a lot of crying.
A lot of crying.
Okay.
Well, after Mr.
Okay.
Kaplan cleaved this particular diamond, he took 6 months off.
I would think.
What did your family do to educate you to be in the diamond industry?
Well, when I graduated high school, I had to go out and work. I couldn't go to college. I had to go out and work and support my family. I didn't know what to do. I had no thing. So my mother called my cousin, Mr. Kaplan, and said, you know, Serge just graduated high school and he's looking for a job. Can you use him? And he said, yeah, let him come. So I went and I started as a shipping boy. And I did a shipping boy, an errand boy, for 2 years. And then little by little, I started to pick up diamonds on my own and started to just look at them. And then he started to look at them and see how I was doing. And he saw that I had a very good eye, that I could find little tiny things in the diamond. And he started to have me grade diamonds. So I started grading diamonds. And then at the end of my career, my job was to travel around and do seminars for our jewelers. I'll tell you a story about clarity grading and why it's important to have a good eye. I was grading diamonds on my own after about 2 years. And we had a factory in Puerto Rico, in Ponce, Puerto Rico. And I would grade the production as it came up into New York. And one particular week, I graded a 3-carat diamond, and I found a very, very tiny little inclusion in the bottom of the diamond. So diamonds are graded flawless, VVS1, which means very, very slightly included, all the way down to eye imperfect diamonds, where you can hold it out here and you can see the inclusion. And this particular diamond, to me, was a VVS1. Now, between a flawless and a VVS1 is a really tremendous price in a 3-carat diamond. Now, a stone like that cannot be sold to anybody just as a VVS1. You need backup on it. So you need a Gemological Institute of America certificate. But I graded it in a VVS1. And Mr. Kaplan looked at, not him, but his son, Leo, who was also in the industry, looked at the diamond and said, I can't see it. So I said, well, I see it. It's right there. And I took India ink, which we used to use, and I circled the inclusion that you could see from the bottom of the diamond. And he looked at it, and he said, I don't see it. He says, you can call it flawless. Now, I know that it's there. Now my ego is hurt. So I send the stone to Gemological Institute of America to get a certificate, which we were going to do anyway. And it comes back flawless. So now, let me tell you that a Gemological Institute of America person who grades a diamond is not going to grade it with a loupe. They're going to grade it with a microscope. And a 10-power microscope is more powerful than a 10-power loupe. It's got 2 eyepieces, and you're going to see more in a microscope than in a loupe. Plus the fact that they are the final authority. They don't want anybody finding something that they miss. So they're going to up it more than 10 power. They're going to probably look at it at 15 to 20 power. And if they see anything, then they'll lower it to 10 and see if they still see it. And that's the way they grade diamonds. Right? But anyway, they graded flaws. So now, my ego is hurt. And what I do is, again, I take the India ink and I mark the diamond. And I was very friendly with Mr. Bob Crowninshield, who was the head of GIA at that time. And I said, Bob, I said, I marked it for you. I said, I think you'll see it now. And he looked and he called me up and he said, Serge, he says, how the hell did you ever find that? He says, it is there, and unfortunately, we have to call it a VVS1. So the certificate comes, VVS1, and Mr. Leo Kaplan calls me into his office. And he said, Serge, he said, if you ever do that again, now if it wasn't my cousin, I think I would have lost my job. Right? Because between a VVS1 and a flawless, you're talking probably $60,000 difference, something like that. So that's why I was telling you before that the only one of them that is not a perfect fit is clarity grading. There is no computer that will clarity grade, whereas there is a computer that will tell you the angles and proportions, and there is a computer that will tell you the color.
Serge, thank you. This is really fascinating.
Now, if you want to see I have here
We'll show and tell up here.
a little rough crystal, and it's amazing that these things come out octahedron shape out of the ground. And this is a 1.5 carat octahedron shape. Right?